Hello, welcome back to another episode of Somewhere Between a Film and TV podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Parra, and number one, thank you so much for listening and watching. Number two, if you could, please down below, like, comment, subscribe. What did you think of Edgar Wright's new film, The Running Man? Adapted on Stephen King's, went under a pseudonym at the time of writing this original novella. What is it about? It is about a deadly competition where contestants known as runners must survive 30 days while being hunted by professional assassins. And it is so much more than that, because every time I try and explain it to people, I notice that I get really caught up on a lot of it. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the movie's messy or anything. I think it's just about a lot. And so once you really start getting into it, I think that it is really about a ton and has a lot to say. But remember, everything we review here will always have full spoilers. If you want to see this, I'm going to tell you right now, I highly recommend it. But there are some things that I want to get into and want to spoil. So, like this, click out, get out of here, and then come back for now. But everyone else, The Running Man with Glen Powell, I was super excited for this right off the bat. I'm a huge Stephen King fan. I like the movie from the 80s. I think that it's good. It's really cheesy. It's got a very specific sense of humor about it that Arnold Schwarzenegger definitely played into, because it's got his very much one-liners after another every few seconds, much like Total Recall, for example. And also being about having a sense of humor, but then also being about like sticking it to the government, sticking it to the man. And here, I am surprised by the reviews, I feel, because I know that it's at like 64% on Rotten Tomatoes, so that's not bad. That's a passing score, that's all that. I will say this, I'm not trying to compare movies or anything, but Edgar Wright, one of my favorite directors ever. I love essentially everything of his except for one movie. Controversial, I know, to say which one it is, but I will in a second. I love Shaun of the Dead. I love The World's End. I love Hot Fuzz. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. I'm basically just listing his entire catalog. I like Baby Driver. I don't love it. I think it's good. I think that it is funny enough. I've heard some of the complaints about this one. I would switch my complaints with that and this one. I think that movie is a little too mean-spirited without realizing that it is, and then it gets kind of caught up in its own tone. And I think that the action isn't really amazing in it. I know, a bunch of hot takes for that movie, I know, but overall I like it. This one though, did I love it, did I hate it, or am I somewhere between on it? I loved this movie. I thought it was really impressive. I'm a huge sucker for that type of like competitive game show dystopian commentary on America thing. Like I just talked about The Long Walk a couple months ago. That movie was phenomenal. Also another Stephen King thing. He was definitely angry about the US government for a while. And same goes for The Hunger Games. I love those a lot. I love Squid Game. I love Battle Royale. All of those things. So naturally, I go into this. Of course I'm excited for it. And then it lived up to my expectations. I thought that this was really great, to be honest with you. But let's get into the overall positives of why I thought it was great. I thought that Glen Powell plays a really interesting leading man. I've liked Glen Powell in things. I thought that he was kind of standard in Twisters, though. I mean, that's what he was given to do. And I'm not going to complain about it, because, I thought he was good in that, but he wasn't amazing in it, because I felt like it's not necessarily like he had to be. But here, I think he's amazing in this. He's amazing in Hitman. And I like that he's playing a character that is really angry about the environment that he's in, about why he is in the position that he's in, that the government is lying to you, that like consistently throughout the movie that he gets angrier and angrier about the position that he's in, because he realizes just how unfair the system is that they are placed in. But granted, every time I try and explain this movie, it sounds like it's really, really serious. It is grim. It's got a lot of dark humor to it, but I think that this movie's anger and its mean-spiritedness are entirely intentional and on purpose, and the humor here works really well for me, because of the sometimes really grim punchlines. Like, for example, The Monkey, even earlier this year, another Stephen King thing I thought really played into its really kind of dark sensibilities, and it was really funny. And here it's more in the action aspect of things, but I think that Glen Powell is obviously, he's jacked, of course he is, and he's like got the physique for this, but he's also playing a really interesting angry main character. I thought he was going to be Mr. Smooth, Mr. like tough guy, but also really suave. But no, he's a wreck essentially. He gets really angry. He's got anger management problems for sure. There's a line early on where he says something to the effect of, they're like, "You are by far the angriest person who's ever auditioned for this show." And he says, "Well, that really pisses me off." And I think that boils down to the kind of, number one, sense of humor that this movie has, and number two, exactly what type of character Glen Powell is playing. I do think that it plays into a lot of that really, really well. And the other thing as well that I really like is the supporting cast. Josh Brolin is playing a kind of, he's the corporation, he's the big symbol, the bad guy, the corporate, we have to take them down face of everything, and he's really good in it. He doesn't get a lot to do, but he's mostly there to be a face, to be the bad guy, to be the whole like, oh, well, if you play into the system well enough, then you'll get exactly where you want to be. He sees everything as a kind of a money sign, essentially. He's playing it in that order, and he even starts to, Glen Powell's character starts to exploit that idea, that he's like, oh, you guys, if you want to take it far enough, you can end this anytime you want. But if those ratings are coming in, then they, by all means, they'll keep going. And I really, really liked Coleman Domingo in this as the host of The Running Man. He's got such a showmanship performance. The entire enunciation of everything that he does, the suits, the glamour of it all is very playing it up into the audience. And then you learn kind of later that he's also there. He's like, look, hey, I am going to stand on the right side of history. If this guy is going to be the face of it all, I'm going to go too. And I like that a lot, that there is this kind of playing the system that happens in this movie. A lot of it is morally gray. There's not a lot of like right and wrong necessarily, but the thing that is wrong is very clearly the say-so on government oppression of speech, interestingly enough. And we'll talk about the irony of that all here in a second, but I also really liked Katie O'Brien in this as this really kind of arrogant character that's a part of The Running Man. And then you realize that they break it down, that there's three. There's always there's the hopeless guy, the one that gets I think he gets killed in a Shake Shack. Is that what it is? But speaking of, but that, and then Katie O'Brien is I'm just gonna be like playing in front everybody's faces, and if they get me, they get me. And then realizing later that once they break down the system, they're like, oh, they're letting her do that because they're playing into their types. And Glen Powell, of course, realizes he's the final dude, is what they say, when the kind of conspiracy guy breaks down really what's going on. I also really liked Michael Cera in this, as it's funny that he's doing more serious roles, but then he's still the funniest thing that's in this. Every single line that he has in here is hilarious when they go into his house, and then he has this insane mom or grandma, but that she's like cackling at literally everything, and she wants to see violence happen in front of her, and that Michael Cera is very much an activist, but he's like the zine type of activist, and the modern, not modern day, but like set in the near future day. And I also really liked Lee Pace as this intentionally kind of cartoony villain that feels straight out of a TV show, but then they also play it up because it's very cartoony and they put him into a reality TV show. I thought that a lot of the commentary here was super smart and got away with also kind of playing into the actual realities that the characters live in as well, and ends up being able to balance that kind of tone, at least in my opinion, very, very well. And it's funny because it's an action movie with a noticeable amount to say on its mind. It's about government restriction of speech. It's about how we end up kind of being barbaric for the sake of others' entertainment, that this is like the modern day or future version of the Colosseum, and that we end up, how far are we willing to go to see other people hurt other people for our own entertainment and amusement. And of course, one other thing that this movie does as well is it has this like random commentary on the Kardashians as well. There's this reality show they keep cutting to that Glen Powell's watching sometimes, and it's obviously a commentary on how we watch that as well, and how they're still able to be in this sort of rich reality while Glen Powell's stuck in, I think they call it slumicide, and how he's like getting a kick out of watching that. But I also like the random detail that anytime, he never states this out loud, but anytime his least favorite sister's talking, he'll mute her, and then notice that she's not talking, he'll unmute her. I thought that was hilarious. That was a really funny detail. And the other stuff that works about this as well is I make it sound like it's this really activist movie, and I mean, it has a lot to say about that, but it's also a lot of commentary that's also very funny on a bunch of other stuff. And I think that one other thing as well is it's very meta how it approaches it. It's very fourth wall, but doesn't quite address the camera, is product placement. There's a rampant amount of product placement in this movie, but on purpose. And there's a moment where he's eating Funyuns. There's a moment where I'm blanking on another one, but the main one, the one that like pushes it. It's the only time where I thought the movie had such a tonal shift balance, but it felt almost intentional that I didn't quite know what to think of it, because it did that thing where to make a emotional moment kind of undercut by a joke, but it felt like it was on purpose kind of. And it's this moment where Michael Cera is giving this elongated speech about how his dad had a hot dog stand because the hot dogs were a symbol of not following in line and being yourself and rebelling against the system. It sounds funny when you say it out loud, but that's quite literally what happens in his monologue. And then he stops and he gets a Monster Energy with the monster placing, like, the logo is directly in front of the camera, and he goes, Monster Energy, and then he drinks it, and then you're just like, what? And I thought it was so funny. It reminded me of Wayne's World, but I really like that a lot. But it's funny, I haven't even touched on this yet. The action in this is really, really creative and really well done. I felt like the whole concept of the fact that the people are able to rat out the running men if they want to adds such an additional layer of tension, at least for me, that I thought was really great. There's so many moments where I feel like you're so tense because you don't know if the person that he goes to you can trust or not, or if they do sell him out, why they sell him out, like Michael Cera does at a point, but it's because of his own wants, and it doesn't even end up being because he wants to like get the money or whatever, but it's just because he wants to stick it to the man himself. But it's really well done, and I really liked it's funny because, I feel like Edgar Wright, I don't know if he like lives in the US or if he lived in the US for a while, but I know that he's definitely seen the US news or something, because it feels like a UK man that's very angry about the America. And there's obvious moments that are kind of like not really focused on, but they're still there. There's this moment where this lady's in a very clearly like Tesla type, and she's driving, but she's still watching that Kardashian show too. And then there's also the Americanos, I think is what they're called, and there's also another moment that leads from that where she's stopped by these guys called the Militia Boys, and they have this southern accent, but they spelled militia wrong on the side of their truck, which is so funny. And where like what's being said there with that, but it's also very interesting that this movie even has that commentary at all, because it's interesting that obviously some of it was modern day updated for today, but the fact that this story and the ramifications of what's being said in this story are still relevant today is very interesting, even in the 80s, the 90s, but then even bringing it back here as well. And the other action scenes I really liked there's one in like a hotel sequence where he's like in just a towel and he has to scale the side of the building, and it ends up leading one thing to another, and then it ends up being that he blows up the bottom of this, and then the news frames it as he killed 8 people. Can you believe that he killed these innocent families? And I thought it was a really interesting commentary on the media manipulation of narrative to steer into your own beliefs. For it's like that echo chamber thing, but they can also do it because they even orchestrate it where they make the public think that these are like the scum of the earth, that these are the worst people ever, because they want them to root against them in a sense. And still, despite all of that, he ends up building this kind of cult following within the context of the movie because they really like what he's doing. And why? Because not everybody is on the wavelength of that. You keep seeing the all goons are bastards sign throughout the entire thing, or that it says kill the execs, because the execs are like the corporate overlords that like mostly run the entire entertainment thing. It's very much like what happens if entertainment is the thing that is the number one controller of the world. And I thought that was interesting really early on, that to make world building happen as well, they even show that there are other TV shows that aren't as serious as this one, but you still get hurt, just not to the effect of dying. And there's this one where this guy is a bigger guy, and they say that he's like a big boned guy, and that he's on this wheel running, and he's doing trivia at the same time. But if he gets a question wrong, they speed the wheel, and then he ends up like smacking against it, falling unconscious, and just like basically twirling over and over and getting knocked out unconscious. Which I thought, I was like, okay, really smart that not only this isn't the only game here. He doesn't even try to sign up for the Running Man initially. He's just going to go on to all of the other ones. But I think that initially, what I will say is I thought that they were going to show him on a couple of those, and then he was going to get into the Running Man itself. But I thought that that was really well done. I thought that the sci-fi world, which I don't know why I didn't expect it to be in such a future feeling cyberpunk Blade Runner-esque aesthetic world, would be present in this, but I really liked it. I dug it a lot. I thought it looked really cool and grungy and grimy, and like not in a future in a positive sense, but I thought it was so funny that still the most present places in the movie are like Shake Shack, and there's also like the Monster Energy thing as well. And I think that the set piece at Michael Cera's house is really well done too, where I kind of wish this wasn't in the trailer, but it's this thing he does where he sets up, it's like a Home Alone house, and he sets up all this stuff at the bottom with like wires and stuff, and then he squirts the water on it to electrocute them as they walk by. I was like, that's so clever. That's really great. And I, like, part of me is like, I wish that wasn't in the trailer, because it would have been such a cool surprise to see that. But I thought that was great. I thought that Glen Powell was giving such an interesting lead performance, because I wasn't expecting. He's likable in a really arrogant way, but he's also constantly angry at everything, no matter where he's at. I think that I've heard some people say that they feel like they were told that he was angry. They didn't feel that he was. But I gotta say, I disagree with that. I feel like he's constantly annoyed everywhere he goes, and that everything makes him upset. And I dug that a lot about it. If I were to say steer into my negatives, there's a couple. I think that the ending, like I've heard this too, and I kind of agree with it, is super weird. It feels like it was going to have a grim ending. That the scene where like the airplane, he crashes into the building, but then it pauses there, and then the guy busts out he was friends with earlier. That's like the conspiracy guy that does the analysis of the game, and is like, what really happened? Did he really die? And it was so weird, because then the next 10 minutes, and then Glen Powell's like walking around, and he surprises his wife, and she's like, I don't go by that name anymore. And then later on, it's him going back to the reality show with Josh Brolin, and then he shoots him, and that's the end of the movie, which like was emotionally satisfying. But it would have been more emotionally satisfying if I wasn't so confused on how it was laid out. It just felt very much like I've heard people say reshoots. It kind of felt like that, because I was just like, wait, where is this? This feels left field. Like, where is this coming from exactly? And that would probably be my one complaint about that. And I think that it has a lot to say. It's got a lot on its mind. I'm not saying it has too much going on, but if it was just a little bit more streamlined than what it was saying, I feel just a little bit, it would have been like solid 5-star. But just with those two cons added to it as well, I still think that this is a really great movie. I think it's a really great time. And honestly, I feel like some of the stuff, it's super fun. It's super funny as well. And I really like what it has to say about media getting mixed in with the idea of also controlling government, and how those two things get mixed in, and what the government can get away with and not get away with in terms of like safety concerns as well, where he's angry that everyone wasn't able to have children because of a accident that was covered up, or some of the other stuff that's in this as well. But I think that it's so great. I love. Oh, the other thing was getting cancer from this explosion. That's what I was thinking of, and the regulation on that kind of thing, which obviously, I mean, of course, probably happens in current day. But overall, I thought that this was so great. I thought it was really impressive. I really liked the action. I really liked Glen Powell. I really liked Lee Pace's like cartoony character that he was playing, the villain. I thought was pretty cool. And overall, yeah, I thought it was super smart. I'm going to give this a really high score outside of the couple cons. I would give this a 4.5 out of 5. I loved this movie. I thought it was super impressive, and I dug it a lot. What did you guys think of The Running Man? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Or are you somewhere between on it? I want to know. Up next, I believe, is Zootopia 2. I got to double check, but I know that's coming. I'm excited for that. I'm looking forward to it. I love the first one. It's been a long time since the first one, though. But again, what did you guys think of Edgar Wright's The Running Man? I loved it. I thought it was great. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. Stay safe, and as always, I'll see you next time.